Lunacy Loop, where we keep you in the loop of psychology's craziest theories and practices, historical and current. I'm Bella Downey.
And I'm Taylor Ernst.
And on today's episode, we'll be discussing the Lunar Lunacy Effect.
During the course of this podcast, we will be discussing these key points. First of all, what is the lunar belief and what are its origins? What are the subpopulations that believe it, and what anecdotal evidence surrounds it? We'll be going into some contributing theories and evidence and disconfirming evidence. Lastly, we're going to talk about some cognitive biases and beliefs that play into the idea.
Now, what is the lunar belief? Historically, the origins of the word lunatic come from ancient Latin and later Greece, and it refers to the effect that the moon has on people. Hippocrates and around 400 years later, Gaius Plinius Secundus believed that the moon affected the moist humors of the brain, and even later than that, it referred to those with epilepsy. Some common myths surrounding the lore of different cryptids, such as the werewolf, are often attached to the full moon within their legends. But this is not how they started. The affliction of lycanthropy was originally a divine punishment brought on by the gods of old and Proto-Indo-European cultures, specifically ancient Greece, Mesopotamia, and Europe. And as time went on, the connection that werewolves and other cryptids had to the full moon became a resolute bond, initially deriving the moon's perceived influence and on madness and sanity. This, coupled with the Golden Age Hollywood films such as The Wolfman in 1941, gave rise to the popularity of the addition that the werewolf transforms under the full moon. Today, we define the Lunar Lunacy Effect as the perceived effects the lunar calendar has on human behavior. However, this is often seen anecdotally through family members, healthcare workers, emergency responders, and those in the service industry, and many others. So the question today really is, while this belief has been the zeitgeist for centuries, what exactly makes it so believable? And better yet, why do people want to believe in the Lunar Lunacy Effect? Our thoughts? People want to believe in this effect, although there is no substantial or clear evidence to support their case. The over-reliance on anecdotal evidence creates a perceived effect and cognitive biases, thus leading to the assumption of the moon having an effect on human behavior.
Personally, I think there might be a little bit of truth to the lunar effect. I mean, again, just from my experiences, but I probably have some biases that are leading me to believe that. What do you think, Bella?
I mean, being raised in a household with two healthcare workers, you kind of hear an earful of it while growing up. Every time a rough day happened for either my mom or my dad, it was, it must be the full moon, all the crazies are out. So it's hard not to believe in this kind of a thing.
Definitely. Well, and with apparently, like you're talking about earlier with like the werewolf things, like it is kind of embedded into some of our cultural stories and stuff. So I wonder how much of that would have an influence on people's beliefs. Now, some of the subpopulations, like you said, you're growing up with parents in healthcare. Healthcare workers are actually most likely to believe in this, and we collected some personal testimonies from family, friends, social media. But healthcare workers such as nurses, PAs, respiratory therapists, psychiatrists, as well as emergency responders, police, firefighters, EMTs, and then various members of the service industry. So my stepmom actually works in a hospital, and she posted on her Facebook when we were beginning to gather evidence for this project. She asked coworkers and friends if they think that the full moon does have an effect on people's behavior. Turns out most of them agreed and had some stories to tell. One of the most notable stories was from an ER tech who responded saying The worst night of her life was on the full moon. 2 patients escaped from the secured psych-hold area
Oh my gosh.
and ran out screaming. She said everyone was drunk or suicidal or a bit of both.
That is so crazy. I can't imagine having to
Props to her.
handle escaped patients.
Yeah, that's insane. I'm a barista right now. I would say, as a service industry worker, I do notice that customers get more, at least I think, they get more irritable, a little more irrational, and sometimes more annoying during the full moon. We had a couple months ago on a full moon, some guy came into the cafe near closing, and he went into the cafe bathroom and decided that he didn't want to use the toilet, but he peed everywhere.
Oh, no way. Ew.
It's disgusting. And it was like right before close. We had to clean up. I didn't have to clean up, but someone else did.
Thankfully.
Yeah. Thank you. Shout out, Maddie. Yeah, so that was one crazy incident. There's so many.
There is always so many, especially with my dad, who's been in healthcare for, I want to say, 40 years now.
Wow.
Especially when he was an ER nurse in LA. He gave me this one crazy story while, again, looking for some anecdotes for this project. And he prefaced the story with saying something that ER nurses will always agree on is that weird things happen in the ER during the full moon. So one of the stories he gave was he was trying to help a 48-year-old man who was, by all appearances, completely healthy, who had suffered sudden cardiac arrest from absolutely nothing.
Wow.
So whenever he was asking paramedics if he was exercising, they said, yeah, sure, that's a word you could use for it. And it turns out this 48-year-old lawyer had been cheating on his wife at the time of his sudden cardiac arrest. And where was his wife, you may ask? At the doctor for her cancer treatment.
Oh my god. Well, it sounds like a cold case of karma.
Yeah, honestly, a little bit. Though they had been giving him chest compressions and epinephrine for 45 minutes. They called his death. There was no clear signs for the sudden code. However, after they had called his death, he started breathing again. His heart, my dad made sure to check. His heart still wasn't beating. However, he started breathing, which is really, really strange because that usually doesn't happen.
Yeah,
you know,
no,
you usually can have a heartbeat with no breath, but it
normal.
doesn't usually happen the other way around. And my dad really attributed this to the full moon.
Oh, yeah. Well, it could only happen on a full moon.
It could only happen on a full moon.
I mean, that's crazy to happen at any time.
I mean, honestly, yeah, but it's definitely going to happen on a full moon according to him. So this really leans into the further supporting theories and evidence that people in the healthcare industry use, as well as the researchers that we were reading about. Many cited the use of the appearance, I guess, of biological tides.
Very interesting.
Which is a very interesting theory that Taylor and I really got to learn about during this research process. And the theory spurs from the ideas put forth by Hippocrates and Pliny the Elder. And it's also recorded, like we said, throughout history. And in sources that we've recently used, such as in Thakur and Sharma's study on poisoning incidents over the lunar calendar. Biological tides is a questionable analogy, at best, I would say,
Definitely.
of the gravitational effect that the moon has, possibly extending to the human brain and body through the brain moisture or water in our bodies.
So weird. And nearly every source cited that. Which was
Every
crazy.
single one. I mean, we have over 10 at this point, and I think almost every single one talked about it.
It's crazy. Now, one of the more, I would say, credible.
This one's definitely
bits of
my
evidence.
favorite.
Same. It has to do with the moon and circadian rhythms. So there is some research suggesting that our mood and sleep patterns might shift with the lunar cycle, especially during the full moon. There was a longitudinal study by Ware in 2018 found that some bipolar patients' mood and sleep changes synchronized to the lunar cycle. I think this was about like 18 patients, and a good chunk of them did experience some synchronizations, but there was one patient that had notable changes throughout this. There was a study done by Kasaragi et al. In 2021, used wrist actigraphy, a watch monitoring people's sleep and wake patterns. They used this to determine the sleep onset and duration for two populations. So the first population was a rural indigenous community in Argentina, and this community had no access to electricity and artificial light. Now, the other population was an urbanized U.S. area with high access to artificial light. I think this was University of Washington, some undergraduate students. I think that was this population. So interestingly enough, the results found similar consistent patterns in both groups, being that in the days leading up to a full moon, people went to sleep 20 to 30 minutes later and slept around 30 to 50 minutes less nightly.
Interesting.
Very strange, very strange. While the effects were quite similar across the two populations, they were the strongest in rural communities. So we think that artificial light might minimize these sleep effects, but the effects still exist throughout both populations, regardless of the light, if there is artificial light or electricity or not. So that was very...
That's so strange. I wouldn't expect those suburban areas to have such a strong significance, I would say.
Definitely.
That's wow.
Yeah. This really leads us to wonder if the moon could be considered a sightgaber. So sightgabers, when we talk about the circadian rhythm, these pop up a lot. They're rhythmically occurring natural phenomena that act as cues to regulate our circadian rhythm. Some examples that we know of are light exposure, especially sunlight, and meal times. So this might be why so many people are adamant about seeing sunrise and sunset every day, or why we eat at certain times daily.
Is this really why people always ask to maybe put my phone away during sleep, or suggest that?
Probably, yeah.
I don't think I can do it.
I don't think I can either. So could the full moon, the moon in general, be a sightgaber, a cue which seems to clearly influence our behavior and our processes? I think that it very well could be considered one, but we do need more evidence to demonstrate if it has clear effects on our behavior.
Interesting. And in another study, especially done by Dechev and Janes in 2023, found that the stock returns tended to be around 2 times higher during the new moon, not the full moon, but the new moon, over the last 100 years for the United States. I know, that's insane. In 24 other countries, over 30 years. So, I mean, even though this doesn't generalize to other market variables, it really provokes the thought that lower by comparison stock returns might negatively affect human behavior during the full moon.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you care about your stocks.
If you're really into the stock market, I guess pay attention to the lunar calendar.
Yeah. But then again, it always says it's not a reputable trading strategy.
And yeah, but
someone's gonna do it.
It really does, I'm sure, it does definitely feed into the thought that the lunar calendar has an effect.
Yeah. This one was the most interesting. I just thought that was so strange when we found that.
Yeah.
I was kind of excited.
It just kind of came out of left field for us, I think, for our sources. Yeah. So, speaking of really interesting sources, what about this other one that you found from northern Finland?
Oh my goodness. So in northern Finland, there was a study done over, 23 years. And this study analyzed about 2,600 suicides.
Wow.
Found a limited lunar effect in premenopausal women. So the effect was only premenopausal women in winter and on a full moon. That group specifically had significantly higher suicide rates than anyone else. Didn't affect men, didn't affect menopausal women, only premenopausal women in winter. So we found that was very interesting. And again, this is over 23 years, so I think
that's
makes
amazing.
It even more interesting. But in this one, the researchers did suggest that it could be partially due to an interaction between premenstrual dysphoria disorder, seasonal affective disorder, and some other environmental factors. I know they said, I think it was with seasonal affective disorder and PMDD, or the premenstrual dysphoria disorder, that they have similar onsets, which I believe are luteal onset. So I really like that they pointed out that could be a potential.
Yeah, I really liked this study specifically because they pointed out other reasons for these things occurring. Because I feel like with a lot of the studies that we found with this specifically, they really want to believe that the moon is causing these behaviors. So I think that really added to the study, and I really enjoyed reading it.
Agreed. Now we're going to get into some of the disconfirming evidence. So, me and Bella talked about biological tides a little bit, which is an idea that we're seeing in all of our studies that we're looking at. But Lilienfeld and Arkowitz actually kind of dived into this belief, and they countered it for a couple of reasons. So they explained that this is not based in evidence at all. In fact, a mosquito sitting on one's arm has a higher gravitational pull on a human than the moon does.
Finally, I can be free from this belief.
For real.
It has really just been so frustrating hearing all of these people talk about it with no evidence whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it makes you really think, like, where did this come from and why?
I really don't know. No evidence supports the lunar effect on contained water, such as like the water in us, in the human body. It's only on open bodies like the ocean. So it's very different.
Oh my goodness. And nobody thought to do a small scale with like Tupperware or anything like that, like putting some water in Tupperware and seeing if the moon affects it.
Nope.
Oh my goodness.
Gotta go straight to humans. The last piece that Lilienfeld and Arkowitz really highlighted was that new and full moons have an equal gravitational pull on humans. So they might have, differences on different things, but on humans it's the same. So, why would the full moon affect our behavior so much, and then the new moon,
do nothing?
And it's null. It's like it's kind of
that's yeah. We
So,
can't pick and choose.
Exactly. We found also Raton and Kelly, 1985. They conducted a meta-analysis of 37 studies, and they examined lunacy and its relationship with the phases of the moon. So they explored different dimensions of lunacy or craziness, and some of these include suicide, self-harm, crime, psychiatric admissions and disturbances, homicides, and crisis calls. And in their meta-analysis, they found that lunar effects are negligible, less than 1%, so very slim. And any potentially significant results out of this 1%, it was likely due to chance or analytical flaws. Very interesting.
That's so crazy that it's just less than 1%, and it's really built up to this huge thing that everybody, I feel like, at least in the healthcare profession, believes in.
Definitely. So in that Finland study with the premenopausal women, while we did see a small correlation for winter full moon suicides in that group living in Finland, the study could not demonstrate a true causal relationship. So it's not causation. Correlation doesn't equal causation. It also could not generalize to a broader population. We saw no effects in men. We saw no effects in women with menopause. Anybody else, nothing. No other seasons or anything. So no other significant results emerged from the study. And the effect could be due to an interaction of other variables, as the researchers did mention. But the results have yet to be replicated or expanded. We have Thakur and Sharma, which Bella talked about a little bit earlier, in 1984.
The biological tides again.
Yep. Analyzed some criminal incidents over 5 years across 3 different police stations in India. Now, their study found an increase in crime during the full moon. However, we couldn't find any additional findings reporting similar results. We don't wish to discredit the researchers. The study doesn't report any methods of controlling confounds. And yeah, it states a kind of a faulty reasoning as to why it could be. And it is a case study too, so we have to take into account the study design as to why it's flawed. So the results are likely due to the design of the study or chance, even.
Mm-hmm. And again, with all of these studies, it really kind of leads to the cognitive biases and beliefs that we hold as researchers, especially confirmation bias. If these researchers or us as individuals already are inclined to believe that the full moon has effects on individual behavior, we're more likely to remember or search for those events matching that belief. And we may even classify normal events as stranger than they really are during the full moon.
I've done
it.
Probably.
I've done that too. And it also leads to what we also call availability heuristic. Mm-hmm. People often judge how common something is by how easily we can think of an example or instance. And the full moon being an already very noticeable event, perhaps more so than the new moon, we're more likely to recall strange events that happen during a full moon and overestimate their occurrences.
Definitely. We also have the lack of empirical evidence and falsifiability, which we see very commonly aligned with pseudoscience, and we do think this is a pseudoscientific belief. So while there are occasional outlier studies or studies supporting that it could be a reality. There are no statistically significant and consistent results implying the full moon's effect on our behavior. The lunar effect also does risk avoiding falsifiability. It can't be proved wrong in a sense because the claims overly rely and can be twisted. They overly rely on biases, supernatural beliefs, and some of our unique individual interpretations of experiences.
Especially all those stories from healthcare workers. I mean, that definitely contributes to this.
And that's another thing, excessive reliance on anecdotal evidence. As humans, I mean, we rely on persuasion a lot. Mm-hmm. We value people who can persuade us and word of mouth. And even when this might lack empirical justification or when we've yet to see it for ourselves. Now, when multiple people fall victim to the biases that we're mentioning, it's the distorted information can be passed down as being experiential evidence, which we still value despite knowing, or sometimes some people know, but your memory is faulty sometimes.
Right.
And there's also, obviously, confounds that scientific methods aim to detect and control for. Some methods, not all. And that's what we're getting to now. There's definitely some methodological limits and bias in research. Lilienfeld and Arkowitz and Raton and Kelly, both of these studies, they really showed us that seemingly valuable supporting evidence can arise as a result of a flawed study design and our own internal cognitive biases, failure to isolate the effects of the independent variable. Similarly, in our review, the research we gathered, we also identified additional studies that reflect this issue. So we're seeing a lot of it.
It makes us really understand that we need to be aware and cognizant of our tendency to believe these things, and we really need to keep a skeptical mind, I think.
Yes, exactly. Skepticism, not cynicism. Skepticism. Now, we did see in The Dark Side of the Moon, this was a study done by the Medical Journal of Australia in 20...
Oh, I remember this one for sure.
Yeah. This one was an observational study that found an increase in violent and acute behavioral disturbances during the full moon. We didn't immediately rush to dismiss the researchers, but we analyzed the study with definitely a level of skepticism, and
Not cynicism.
we found some potential limitations. The study was observational. It wasn't able to establish causation, of course. It wasn't able to control for extraneous confounding variables, and it's tricky to avoid researcher bias when you have a design with such limitations. The findings also failed to generalize to the broader population. The participants and the observers were only from within a single emergency department, and the participants were those with behavioral disturbances, of course. I remember when I first read through this study, it was we had to search up if it was credible or not, because and it is. It was published.
A medical journal that is reviewed, and I mean, initially reading it, we were really excited. I remember about that one, because we were like, "Oh, this is perfect." It really gets into the healthcare sector, and obviously the title was pretty cool as well. But it makes us really be aware that we have to address these peer-reviewed sources with that skepticism that is highlighted within Lilienfeld, and really be aware of that. So,
Definitely.
So, it's almost time to say goodbye and wrap up our first ever episode. But first, our question again. Why do people believe in the Lunar Lunacy Effect? And our answer from this is that people really want to believe in this effect, even if there is no clear or substantial evidence to support their cases. The over-reliance upon anecdotal evidence creates a perceived effect and cognitive biases, thus leading to the assumption that the moon really does have an effect on human behavior.
But overall, the major body of scientific literature on this effect, it fails to provide really statistically significant results in support of the theory.
And although most of the evidence is in opposition of the lunar effect, there are some studies that evoke further questioning, like that Finland study, which I really liked, and the circadian rhythms. Yes. Do they really have does the moon really have that effect on human behavior and sleep and things like that?
I mean, if I don't sleep, I get cranky.
I can see that, While the studies supported the moon's effects, the methods or applied reasoning don't really coincide with our perception of the world as it is today.
And among the small portion of supporting evidence in our study, and also we see in the meta-analysis and also in Lilienfeld, there's questionable methods that are being used, possibly outdated methods, and the results could be considered unreliable and invalid. Some of them might fail to accurately measure the variables, and of course many of them fail to replicate the findings. So,
well, alrighty guys, I feel like that was a pretty good first episode, and
definitely.
If we continue, we hope to see you guys next time on the Lunacy Loop. My name's Bella.
I'm Taylor.
And we will see you guys next time.